This is the Distinctly Detroit podcast, the only pod that explores why one wants to be in the D. I am your host, Fiota Ship III, the director of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. Join me as I interview students, scholars, leaders, and innovators about living, working, and loving in Detroit. Welcome back to the Distinctly Detroit podcast. On today's episode, we are honored to have Nafeesah Symonette. Nafeesah is the co-founder of Detroit Excellence in Youth Arts and holds teaching positions at both Oakland University and her alma mater, Eastern Michigan University. Nafeesah is a community partner to the Detroit Center and is a strong believer in the positive impacts that equitable access to the arts for all youth can have. The DDP welcomes Nafeesah Symonette. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Fiona.
Right,
I appreciate it.
Glad to have you here. So we'll start off with the simple questions. Okay. Where'd you grow up?
Woof, all over the place. Okay. I grew up, I'm originally from California, from the Bay Area, okay. Oakland to be exact. And so I grew up in both Michigan, in Detroit and in California. Okay. So I have an older sister, younger brother. My sister was born here, and after she was born, my parents moved to California. We also have family there, and then I ended up coming back here to Detroit. Went through my sophomore year at Henry Ford High School on the West Side. Shout out Trojans, and then went back to California. Okay. So when I say all over the place. I mean all over the place. No, actually, this time back to Palo Alto. So my father went to Stanford as a product of a child whose parent goes to Stanford. You automatically end up at Palo Alto High School. Okay. That was interesting. Okay. Yeah. So and then came back here to go to Eastern.
So you left here high school and went back to California. So what was that transition like?
Oh my God. It was a culture shock, to say the least. But, being, a Cali girl adjacent and Detroit-ish, having that dual engagement was really interesting going to California from Detroit. So there was, of course, all of this these assumptions about me as a junior now and at Palo Alto High School, and I was very young. I graduated high school when I was 16. So when I went back to California,
a few grades.
I did. I started early and I skipped a grade. Okay, a grade that didn't matter.
Look at the big brain.
I'm no rocket scientist, but. But yeah, so I went back and I used to tell my students this story all the time about my reintroduction to California. But I remember we called our school a campus. It was really designed. It is designed like Stanford. Yeah. And in my first week at Palo Alto High School, one of the students asked, because they knew I was from Detroit, did I carry a gun? Okay. Mind you, I was 13 turning 14 at the time as a junior.
So you pulled it out and showed it to him.
Yeah. I mean, here you go. Did I carry a gun and was I in a gang? Those were the two questions that I was asked when I got.
You explained to them Detroit didn't have gangs? That's a California thing?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, but they didn't know. It was Palo Alto. So, so that was my reintroduction to California. And it was interesting because while I was there, it really opened quite a bit for me about just race relations, the dynamic between Palo Alto and East Palo Alto. Literally, Palo Alto and East Palo Alto were separated by this little bridge, this small little passover, and it was astounding to me how oblivious the Palo Alto community was to everything outside of its bubble. Okay. And so while I was there, I was a little bit of a rabble rouser. I caused a little bit of trouble. Okay. It was good trouble though. It was good trouble.
I'm curious. So you went back out there, you finished high school in Palo Alto.
I did.
What made you come back to Michigan to attend college?
Well, I'm an artist. I always have been, and I started my artist career, my artist journey here in Detroit. I'm very proud of that too.
Okay.
There were two significant introductions or a portion of my journey in the arts, and the first was Young Artist and Company. Young Artist and Company Incorporated. It was founded by Joyce Ivory in the late '80s. I don't know exactly what year, but I was a part of it as an 8-year-old.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I was a part of it as an 8-year-old. My mother saw an article in the Free Press. She was a faithful Free Press reader. They did a story on Young Artists and Company, and I had proclaimed to be an artist at 7.
Okay.
And my parents signed me up, and so. As an artist, that was the first one. The second one was while I was a sophomore at Henry Ford, I was able to enroll in a busing program to Crockett. Do you remember Crockett?
Yeah.
Vocational Technical School. Yeah. So at Crockett, they had cosmetology, auto mechanics or auto shop. Yeah. They had a visual arts program. So I spent half of my day on like Monday and Wednesday or something like that, going to Crockett. So those two things were very significant for me in my development as an artist. So while in California, after graduating or while I was a senior, I had decided that I wanted to go to New York. I wanted to go to Parsons in New York. Mind you, again, I'm 16.
Hey.
Imagine my father's delight.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Parsons is a good school.
Oh, it's a great school.
Yeah.
It's a great school. But, I mean, we didn't have any family. You know how we are. Yeah. You got to have some family somewhere. Like, it's no family.
Just sending you to New
York.
Yeah.
Not at 16. Like, that just wasn't happening. So, that got squashed, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, I know I have this talent. I'm a painter, by the way.
Okay, nice. You keep anticipating my question. Like, what is your medium? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a painter. Acrylics, I draw, and mostly portraits.
Okay.
And I didn't know what I wanted to do with that. Everybody made it a big deal except for me. It just wasn't a big deal to me. And
you remember those starving artist sales they used to have? You remember the advertising? Because no one wants their child to be a starving artist.
This is true. Although what I know now is that my engagement in the arts, in whatever capacity, whether I was drawing or, whether I was coordinating something, because I consider myself just an overall creative. Like I am just a creative person. But all of that led me to where I am. And I know we'll get into that a little later, but yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I came back to Detroit to figure it out.
Okay.
And I knew by the time I got back to Detroit, I knew I wanted to teach. And this was a couple years after graduating high school. So I didn't come right away. So I spent probably about 1.5 years at a community college in California.
Okay.
And came back here, and I was like, okay, I know I want to teach. I needed to figure it out. My sister was at Clark. She was, graduating in Atlanta, and I was like, I want to do something. I want to go to college too. And so, when I came back here, Eastern, when I started having those conversations, Eastern Michigan University emerged as the school to go to if you wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And so that's it.
Fly Eagles fly.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. So I was like, okay, that's where I'm going, and that's where I ended up. So yes, and then when after graduating from Eastern, I left and went to DC. Okay. So I lived in DC and Baltimore for about 15 years.
So you got the master's degree, and so here you are today.
Mm-hmm.
Today you are the co-founder. I'm sorry, I shouldn't. We in an interview. Your exact title, but you're the co-founder.
I am.
Of Detroit Excellence in Youth Arts.
Yes.
Or DEYA.
DEYA.
As you call it.
Yep.
Tell me about DEYA and how you ended up a part of this effort.
So let me back up just a second.
Okay.
After I got my master's, I got hired at an arts organization called Paint Creek Center for the Arts in Rochester. What I learned while I was there, I was running the art school. And while I was there, I thought to myself, I remember thinking this like very plainly, sitting at my desk, this work that I'm doing, I want to do for my 8-year-old self. I really did. I was like, I'm offering all of these wonderful classes, you know, for young people, for middle age, for older. And a lot of the participants there, they were there just for leisure, right? But what I know is that, you know, in Detroit and you know, in my community, kids don't get to do art like this for leisure. You know, it's not even available for them to do. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I want to do this work, but I want to do it for my 8-year-old self, the 8-year-old brown girl that I was taking my first art lesson. And so when the pandemic happened, it gave me an exit. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I took advantage and I left myself open. I was like, you know, I want to be open to whatever the possibilities and opportunities are. I found myself on the Arts Education Committee for the Michigan Art and Cultural Council. That's the state arts council that manages a federal appropriation for funding, grant funding for the entire state of Michigan. And I was asked to be on the arts education. How did I get connected? Oh, I remember. I was a part of Rising Leaders, and it's their leadership development program specifically for arts leaders while I was at Paint Creek. That's how I got connected. And Michigan Art and Cultural Council manages Rising Leaders. So I started doing volunteer work. I was just volunteering. I was like, you know, I'm just going to keep myself open to whatever opportunities come. And then I was connected. I thought I should start consulting. Like I should start, you know, just, you know, offering in whatever way I can, you know, my intellectual property around arts and arts education. And I started working for myself through MAIA, the Michigan Arts, it's such a long title, Michigan Arts Education Instruction and Assessment Project. Okay. And I was writing for their blog, and I did a 4-part series on the intersection of arts education and culturally responsive teaching. That was my work as a master's student. I centered my work on, you know, how does arts education and culturally responsive teaching really connect? Yeah. And how should not only students, undergraduate students who are getting their teaching certification, how should they be utilizing this or using this lens to learn and teach through? And also, how should current veteran teachers use this lens, this intersection of the arts and culturally responsive teaching? And so I wanted to learn more about, you know, how to train people to think differently about the arts and about being culturally responsive. And so I did this 4-part blog, and lo and behold, somebody was actually reading it. Who knew?
Go figure.
Happened to be Rick Sperling, who founded, he's Detroit famous, right? Founded Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit in the 90s, mid-90s. It is 30 plus years old now. Yeah. And it is a gem of the city. I think, you know, anybody you ask if they know, do they know Mosaic Youth Theater? Absolutely. If you grew up in Detroit, either you were a part of it or knew somebody who was. And he reached out to me and said, I read your blog and I want to talk to you about this idea. Can we meet? Sure. Again, I was keeping myself open. I was allowing the universe to find me. And it did. DEA had been established during the pandemic by Rick when the school shutdown happened. He was the lead arts consultant for the district, for DPSCD. And of course, at that moment, everybody had to figure it out. Everybody had to pivot and figure out how they were going to do their work. The arts were no different. So his job as the lead art consultant was to figure out how arts would be provided during that time. Okay. And he got permission from the superintendent, Dr. Vitti, And he asked it, if he could step outside of the role of consultant, finance consultant, and raise money in order to create a program where it was a mentorship program where young people who were in various arts disciplines would be paired with leaders and artists, teaching artists from various organizations around the city. And then he started doing research around collective impact. Now this was a new concept to me. Collective impact, meaning where a neutral party brings together multiple sectors to support a common goal.
Okay.
The common goal being the support of young people in the arts. And so when we met and talked, and he shared his experience as a 30-year vet in the out of school time world, right? Out of school time youth arts organization world. Yeah. And I shared my 13 years as a classroom teacher, but 20 years or more as, within the arts education space, right? As I was an adjunct professor at Oakland University already, so I was teaching teachers now, right? So I'm coming from the academic standpoint. And so it made so much sense to both of us having our experiences in both of these different worlds, but both supporting the arts to come together. Because what we discovered is that all of the organizations, the neutral organizations that are doing this around the country, they are supporting either one or the other. They're supporting out of school time arts organizations, or they're supporting arts educators. And we said, what if we brought them together? What if we created this thing in order to bring it to bring those two parts of the ecosystem together? And so because DEA was just at that point a name, right? And it was conceived in order to get through the pandemic, and it hadn't been really flushed out. That's when we agreed that we would co-found it and think about the design of it and the structure and how we would engage the community, what it would look like. That all really formulated, evolved, and changed after I came on board, and we really just started to gel and solidify what DEA is. And from that, all of this, these across the board, the number one challenge, barrier that leadership identified for young people being able to access the arts in Detroit is transportation.
That's the number one for all of the after school and activities, is getting the kids there
and getting them home.
Yep, from the school to the program and
then home. The other big thing that came up from that was funding, right? Organizations having sustainable funding that would allow them to grow their capacity. And how do you address funding as one organization to a multi-billion-dollar foundation, right? You do it collectively. You do it with the voice of the collective. Here now, we have talked to 52 different organizations that are saying this thing. You can't ignore that. Yeah. At least you could. It's hard. It's hard to ignore when you have a voice of that many people saying, here is my challenge. What do we do about this? How do we address this? And because we have received foundational support, but we are not receiving support to create programming for young people. So we aren't potentially jeopardizing that opportunity for funding, right? By being vocal. Opinion. Yeah. Exactly. So we get to stand in that gap. And so as we went on this tour, if you will, having these community conversations and talking to all of these different people, everybody was like, where has this been? This is incredible. Some people were like, oh, what is this? This is, Detroiters are skeptical about everything.
Thinking you're going to mine them for their good ideas and take them.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of helping people to understand that other major cities around the country are doing this exact same thing. Chicago is a great example. Boston, New Jersey, California. They have arts arts, collective impact arts initiatives that are happening in these other cities, where a neutral party is convening multiple sectors in order to raise money specifically for arts. That's why we exist.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's your next big project, or what's Daya up to?
What are we up
move?
to? Oh my goodness. We have been up to so many things. Let me share just a couple highlights, right?
Yes.
So one, we very recently got the blessing. We got the night from Mayor Duggan. So we got the support of the city of Detroit.
Okay.
We got
It's a big deal.
It
Yes.
is, right? And I love that he is such a champion of the work that we're doing, because we met with him at the very beginning of Daya, and he was like, "Prove it, challenge." Remember that?
Yeah.
From the Cosby Show. Yeah.
Yes.
Challenge. He was like, "Prove it. Prove that this is necessary. Prove that other organizations want this. Prove that you have the ability to do it." And sent us on our way. So, okay. Give us a good year. Bet. Yep. A challenge. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm here for it. So we came back about a year, and maybe about 14 months or so later, had all the things that we had done, the needs assessment. So we had done this 12-month needs assessment. We had established a 44-member network. So of those 52 different organizations that we interviewed, 44 of them signed on to be a part of the Detroit Youth Arts Providers Network.
Okay.
44 members strong. And in that network, they are making the decisions for what the actionable items are,
Okay.
the goal setting for the network, right?
Yeah.
It is not Rick and I that are setting the agenda. It is the network that sets the agenda. Everybody gets a vote, one vote, except for me and Rick. And so we shared all of that with him. We did a partnership with Children's Hospital, again, bringing in another sector. Children's Hospital, we did created a platform called Youth Arts by Prescription, where we received a grant from my council, the Michigan Arts and Cultural Council. By the way, I was appointed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer to the council, so I am currently a council member.
All right.
Yay. That's been a great experience.
Shout out to Big Gretch.
Shout out to Big Gretch. Yeah. And so we received this grant, and we were able to convene a bunch of arts organizations to provide whatever work, the kind of art that they do. So whether it was music, instrumental, performance, in the lobby of Children's Hospital. And the goal was for the young people who are there as patients to engage with and see and experience these different forms of art, and to ultimately be able to connect with and use it once they leave as a healing tool.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was the pilot. So
definitely, yeah. Art can help heal. Yes.
Absolutely. So this is the point of collective impact, is to bring multiple sectors together in order to support a common goal, that common goal for us being youth arts. So we shared all of these things with him. And before we could even finish, he was like, "Where do I sign? Where's the letter of endorsement?"
All right.
I'm not writing it, you are. But where do I sign? And so we are just super excited about that. We also have a partnership and endorsement from Dr. Vitti, Nikolai Vitti, who is the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools Community District. We have multiple partnerships across the city, Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. We very recently, we were named partners to AEP. AEP is the Arts Education Partnership. Arts Education Partnership is a national organization that convenes major arts organizations and institutes across the country. There was no Michigan representation. There was no Detroit representation until they were connected with Daya. And so now we represent Michigan on this council. And to give you a sense of who else is on there, The National Endowment for the Arts is represented there. Mass Arts from Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts is there. There's several California organizations. There is other school districts. Prince George's County is represented there. DC Arts is represented. Every major urban city was represented except for Detroit.
Oh, wow. And you all brought the representation.
And now we're here, yeah. Okay. And it's been so wonderful because people have said to us so many times, like, we've been waiting for Detroit. Like, where has Detroit been in these art spaces? I mean,
yeah.
And so it's been interesting because we're like, absolutely, like everybody knows Detroit for the arts, for its music, for its dance, for it's design, right? Like it's technology and design. But we aren't having conversations and seats at these major tables. And so, because again, we don't have the mission of creating programming, year-round programming for young people. We have the ability to step away and say, we can be the voice of the entire ecosystem and community if they so choose, which according to the 44 members that are a part of it, they have agreed that DEA as a convener and as a capacity builder is necessary. Okay. Just very recently, one of our really big releases just this past April, in early to mid-April, we released a study with Data Driven Detroit, D3, you familiar with them? D3, we partnered with D3 to do a study on where the arts exist in the city. So as we are doing all of this work, we're learning there's not a lot of data. There's no baseline information of what exists on youth arts in the city of Detroit. And so in order for us to do our work, we have to have a baseline sense of what is happening. Yeah. And so this mapping study identified for us where young people are coming from in the city to go to their arts programs, where programs are in the city, who is accessing the programs. What we learned is that 50%, hear me, 50% of young people that are accessing Detroit-based programs come from outside of the city of Detroit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now we're talking about an equity issue because what we know is that those young people that are coming from the suburbs have mobility. They have transportation. They have parents who are able to get them there. They have the ability to get home. So now this is creating an equity issue for young people within Detroit proper.
Well, I think it's also powerful that it just goes to show Detroit has some quality programming and activity going on if they drawing people from the suburbs into the city.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That is
absolutely
a good starting point. We just need to figure out the transportation issue.
That is absolutely correct. That we know that Detroit has premier youth arts serving organizations. And that's why folks outside of the city, what we gather is that these are primarily parents who grew up in Detroit and moved to the suburbs, but they still are connected. They have roots in the city and they know how high quality the programs are. And so their kids then come back into the city. These are children and grandchildren of folks who once lived in the city. So this study I think it's groundbreaking. The things that we were able to identify, I'll give you one more. On this map, you'll see, and hopefully maybe we can link the map through the podcast. But on the map, it identifies of all the information that we collected. So one of the things that we collected were the zip codes of young people that attend these different organizations, their programs. We collected 2,628, I think that's the number, 2,628 zip codes of young people, and pinpointed where they are participating. There are 5 zip codes. I won't be able to rattle off every single zip code, but there's 5 zip codes that showed up to have the highest number of young people in those zip codes and the least amount of arts opportunities.
Okay.
So what we have decided to deem these areas is youth arts opportunity zip codes. These are opportunities now. So we're identifying for funders, we're identifying for the youth arts serving out of school time serving community. Hey, here's an opportunity. There's not, we don't want you to take away from wherever you're already serving youth, but guess what? Here's an opportunity for you to grow your practice in this area because there's a lot of young people and they aren't getting any arts. So that's what the data is allowing us to show. And so quite a few folks, the city of Detroit has, jumped on this study, like share this with us and let's see what, where we can take this. And we've shared it with funders. We've shared it with the entire community. And it has been just really rich information.
Oh, and I'm sure you're collecting data that no one's ever had before. Mm-hmm. So it's very powerful. It means a lot.
Mm-hmm. It does.
That's awesome. So what we're going to do now, though, is we're going to transition.
Okay.
We've talked about your arts journey.
Yes.
And we're going to talk, you're a part-time Detroiter and now you're back.
I'm Detroit-ish. Don't call me. I'm Detroit. No, I'm Detroit adjacent. Listen.
Yeah, no, you're a Detroiter
this is
now,
home.
But it's fine.
Detroit is home for
me.
I'm
just teasing you. But we're gonna go to our lightning round.
Okay.
We're gonna ask you a series of questions that kind of talk about your feelings of Detroit, your engagement with the city, and whatever. And the first question is, what's your Coney order?
Okay. See. All right. My Coney order would be an all beef chili with shredded cheese, not American.
Okay.
And chili cheese fries with the cheese sauce, not shredded cheese. That would be my Coney order.
Okay.
That was real specific.
Who was your favorite Detroit athlete?
Oh, goodness. Only because I met him once and he was really cool. I met him when I was really young in a Burger King on the West Side, Rick Mahorn.
All right.
Yeah, he was really nice.
Cool. Verner's or Canada Dry?
Verner's.
Okay.
It knocks everything out.
Yep. Better Made or Lay's?
Oh, Better Made. Did I say that fast enough?
No,
Hot.
That's cool. Detroit or New York style pizza?
Can I say both?
You can say both. There's no right or wrong answer.
I am a pizza snob.
Okay.
I like legitimately. I am a pizza snob. And
Okay.
I love both styles, but from certain places.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Favorite Motown artist?
Because she went to DSA, I'm going to say Aaliyah.
Okay.
She wasn't a part of Motown, though.
We'll accept that answer. We'll accept that answer. She's from Detroit.
She was from Detroit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Favorite place to go in the city?
Campus Martius.
Okay.
I love Campus Martius.
Favorite Detroit sports team?
I'm gonna say the Lions. Yeah.
Leos.
Right
Go
there.
Leos. Okay. The last question is, where can we find you?
You can find me. Oh my goodness. I am on Facebook at Daya313. I would love for people to connect with Daya through Instagram and through Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's where you can find us.
Okay. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Nafeesah Symonette, Detroit Excellence in Youth Arts. If you have a young person in your life who's interested in arts, check out Daya. They are a convening organization that's bringing a lot of community organizations together to help support young people, and so they're a clearinghouse. So you can get a lot of good information from them to find out about more specific organizations. We had the pleasure of partnering with them a couple of years ago to do a youth stage for our Concert of Colors activities, and that's why Nafeesah is here. She's a friend of the Detroit Center, and there you have it. This has been a Distinctly Detroit podcast. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please like, rate, subscribe, and we will see you next time. This has been the Distinctly Detroit podcast. This is a production of the University of Michigan Detroit Center. You can find us anywhere you get your pods. Please like, subscribe, and rate us. This podcast is executive produced by Marlon Franklin, edited by Ranza Stanton, and written by Shaylin Jones and Fyodor Ship III.